or one of the most damaging, depending entirely on how you eat them. Eggs are packed with high-quality protein, choline for brain health, lutein for eye health, and essential B vitamins that support nerves and energy metabolism. In fact, eggs are one of the few foods that naturally support muscle preservation, cognitive function, and hormone balance, three things that decline rapidly with age. But here's the problem. Most seniors are eating eggs in ways that destroy their benefits, increase inflammation, spike insulin, and quietly damage blood vessels over time. Eggs have been eaten for thousands of years, long before diabetes, heart disease, and cognitive decline became everyday diagnoses, and yet today, many seniors are told to fear them, to limit them, or to avoid them entirely, when in reality the problem was never the egg itself, but the way modern eating habits have quietly turned a healing food into a metabolic trap. An egg on its own is one of the most biologically complete foods on the planet, containing every amino acid required to preserve muscle, along with choline that protects memory, lutein that shields the eyes from degeneration, and fats that stabilize hormones. But the moment that egg is eaten the wrong way, its benefits collapse and its reputation is blamed instead. Here is the shocking truth backed by decades of metabolic research. Eggs do not spike blood sugar, eggs do not trigger insulin surges, and eggs do not cause fat gain when eaten alone. Multiple studies show that eggs rank extremely low on the glycemic index, meaning they barely move blood glucose at all, which is exactly what aging bodies desperately need, because after the age of 50, insulin sensitivity declines by as much as 40%. That means every unnecessary blood sugar spike causes more damage than it did years ago, silently injuring blood vessels, stiffening arteries, and accelerating brain shrinkage. But now consider how most seniors actually eat eggs. They eat them with white toast, bagels, pancakes, waffles, hash browns, fruit juice, or sweetened coffee. This single combination transforms a stable, blood sugar neutral food into a metabolic storm. Refined carbohydrates digest rapidly, flooding the bloodstream with glucose within minutes. The pancreas responds by releasing insulin, and when insulin is released repeatedly day after day, cells stop responding to it. This is the exact mechanism behind insulin resistance, the root cause of type 2 diabetes, abdominal fat, chronic inflammation, and even Alzheimer's disease, which researchers now call type 3 diabetes. What makes this combination especially dangerous for seniors is that insulin resistance blocks amino acids from entering muscle tissue. Even if you are eating protein, your muscles cannot use it efficiently. This is why so many older adults lose muscle despite eating what seems like a normal diet. Muscle loss is not cosmetic. It directly increases fall risk, fractures, loss of independence, and early mortality. Studies show that low muscle mass is one of the strongest predictors of death in older adults, and yet the very food that could protect muscle is being neutralized by the foods eaten alongside it. Eggs also contain cholesterol, and this is where decades of nutritional misinformation have done serious harm. Cholesterol is not the enemy. Cholesterol is essential for brain cells, nerve insulation, vitamin D production, and hormone synthesis. The brain is nearly 25% cholesterol by weight. When seniors avoid cholesterol-rich foods, the liver compensates by producing more cholesterol internally, often in a more inflammatory form. What actually damages arteries is not natural cholesterol from eggs, but oxidized cholesterol, which forms when foods are cooked improperly or combined with high-sugar diets that increase oxidative stress in the bloodstream. Research published in cardiovascular journals consistently shows that high blood sugar accelerates LDL oxidation, making cholesterol sticky and dangerous. In other words, the toast is the problem, not the egg. The sugar is the problem, not the yolk. When eggs are eaten without refined carbohydrates, they actually improve lipid profiles, increasing HDL, the protective cholesterol that removes excess cholesterol from arteries. This effect is seen most strongly in older adults, whose lipid metabolism benefits significantly from stable blood sugar levels. There is also the issue of inflammation, the silent driver of nearly every chronic disease associated with aging. Eggs contain anti-inflammatory compounds like zeaxanthin and lutein, which accumulate in the brain and retina, protecting against macular degeneration and cognitive decline. But refined carbohydrates trigger inflammatory pathways that overpower these protective effects. Elevated glucose activates NF-κB, a master inflammatory switch inside cells, leading to joint pain, vascular stiffness, and accelerated aging. Seniors who eat eggs with refined carbs are unknowingly canceling out the very compounds that could protect their vision and memory. One of the most alarming findings in modern nutrition science is the link between repeated insulin spikes and brain degeneration. Insulin is required in the brain for memory formation, but when insulin levels remain chronically high due to diet, the brain becomes resistant to it. Brain scans of older adults with insulin resistance show reduced hippocampal volume, the exact region responsible for memory. Eggs provide choline, a precursor to acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter essential for learning and recall. But high insulin levels interfere with this signaling. Once again, the egg is blamed, while the real damage comes from what surrounds it on the plate. Even weight gain in seniors follows this same pattern. Eggs increase satiety hormones like peptide YY and GLP-1, which reduce hunger naturally. Studies show that people who eat eggs for breakfast without refined carbohydrates eat fewer calories throughout the day. But when eggs are paired with sugars and starches, insulin blocks fat burning for hours, trapping energy in fat cells and increasing hunger later in the day. This is why many older adults feel tired and hungry despite eating balanced breakfasts. The most dangerous part is how subtle this damage is. There is no immediate pain, no warning signal, just a slow progression of fatigue, brain fog, joint stiffness, and loss of strength that is wrongly attributed to aging itself. Aging is not the cause, metabolic dysfunction is. And the tragedy is that one of the most affordable, accessible, and nutrient-dense foods available could be part of the solution if eaten correctly. When eggs are eaten alone or with non-starchy vegetables and healthy fats, insulin remains low, inflammation decreases, muscle protein synthesis improves, and the brain receives the raw materials it needs to function. The same egg that contributes to decline in one context becomes a tool for longevity in another. This is not theory. This is observed repeatedly in metabolic ward studies, controlled feeding trials, and long-term population research. So the next time someone says eggs are dangerous for seniors, remember this: eggs are neutral. They reflect the metabolic environment you create around them. Combine them with sugar and refined starch, and they participate in damage. Combine them with fiber, fat, and stable blood sugar, and they become medicine. The difference is not the egg. The difference is the choice made at the table every single morning, shaping health quietly, meal by meal, year by year, until the results can no longer be ignored. Most people believe that once you choose a healthy food, the job is done. But science tells a far more unsettling story, because the way you cook and combine that food can quietly determine whether it heals your body or slowly damages it. And eggs are one of the most dramatic examples of this truth, especially for seniors whose bodies no longer tolerate metabolic stress the way they once did. An egg gently cooked and properly paired can protect the brain, preserve muscle, and stabilize blood sugar. But the same egg cooked incorrectly can generate inflammatory compounds that accelerate aging from the inside out, without pain, without warning, and without obvious symptoms until the damage is already done. When eggs are exposed to high heat, particularly frying or scrambling at temperatures that cause browning, a chemical transformation occurs that most people have never heard of, but almost everyone is affected by. Proteins begin to denature excessively, and fats undergo oxidation, creating compounds known as lipid peroxides and oxidized cholesterol. These substances are not neutral. Oxidized cholesterol is biologically aggressive. It penetrates artery walls, triggers immune reactions, and contributes directly to plaque formation. Research shows that oxidized LDL is far more predictive of heart disease than total cholesterol levels. And seniors are especially vulnerable because antioxidant defenses decline with age, making it harder for the body to neutralize these compounds once they enter the bloodstream. This is why cooking method matters more than most people realize. Boiled eggs, poached eggs, and softly cooked eggs produce significantly fewer oxidation products than eggs fried at high heat. In laboratory analysis, gently cooked eggs preserve sensitive nutrients like choline, biotin, and fat-soluble vitamins, while aggressive heat destroys them. Choline is particularly critical because it is a building block for acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter responsible for memory, focus, and muscle control. Low choline intake is strongly associated with cognitive decline, yet many seniors unknowingly destroy this nutrient every morning by overcooking their eggs. The damage does not stop at the arteries or the brain. High heat cooking also creates advanced glycation end products, known as AGEs, even in foods that contain little to no sugar. AGEs bind to tissues, stiffen blood vessels, accelerate skin aging, and impair kidney function. Studies show that diets high in AGEs dramatically increase inflammation markers in older adults, even when calorie intake remains the same. The frightening part is that AGEs accumulate silently, and once deposited, they are extremely difficult for the body to remove. But cooking is only half the story. The second half, and perhaps even more dangerous, is what eggs are combined with on the plate. Food does not enter the body in isolation. Nutrients interact, hormones respond, and metabolic pathways are either supported or sabotaged based on combinations. When eggs are eaten with processed meats, the risk multiplies. Bacon, sausage, and deli meats contain oxidized fats, preservatives, and nitrosamines that place a heavy burden on the liver. When combined with egg fats, these compounds increase oxidative stress and reduce nitric oxide production, a molecule essential for healthy blood flow. Reduced nitric oxide means poorer circulation to the brain, heart, and extremities, which is why so many seniors experience cold hands, dizziness, and mental fatigue without understanding the dietary connection. Eggs are also frequently eaten without fiber, and this omission has consequences that ripple through the entire body. Fiber regulates digestion, feeds beneficial gut bacteria, and binds excess bile acids and cholesterol for elimination. Without fiber, bile becomes concentrated, cholesterol recycling increases, and inflammation rises. Research on gut health shows that older adults with low fiber intake have significantly higher markers of systemic inflammation and impaired glucose control. Eggs do not contain fiber, which means they rely on vegetables to complete the metabolic equation. When eggs are eaten alone, digestion slows, gut bacteria suffer, and cholesterol metabolism becomes less efficient. Vegetables do more than add fiber. They provide antioxidants like vitamin C, polyphenols, and sulfur compounds that directly counteract oxidation from cooking. Leafy greens, onions, and cruciferous vegetables activate liver detoxification pathways that help neutralize harmful byproducts created during digestion. Without these compounds, even mildly oxidized fats can linger longer in the bloodstream, increasing the chance of vascular damage. This is why populations that consume eggs with vegetables consistently show better cardiovascular and cognitive outcomes than those who consume eggs with refined starches or processed meats. The timing of egg consumption also plays a role that is often overlooked. Muscle protein synthesis is most responsive earlier in the day, particularly in older adults whose anabolic response is blunted with age. Eating eggs earlier, when the body is more insulin sensitive, allows amino acids to be directed toward muscle repair instead of being diverted toward fat storage. Studies show that older adults who distribute protein earlier in the day maintain more muscle mass and experience better strength outcomes than those who concentrate protein intake at dinner. The egg, when used strategically, becomes a tool to resist frailty rather than a neutral calorie source. There is also the issue of fat pairing. Eggs contain fat-soluble nutrients that require dietary fat for absorption, but not all fats are equal. Cooking eggs in refined vegetable oils exposes them to unstable fats that oxidize easily under heat. These oils produce aldehydes and other toxic compounds that increase oxidative stress. In contrast, cooking eggs with stable fats like butter, ghee, or olive oil preserves nutrient integrity and reduces harmful byproduct formation. The difference is not subtle at the cellular level. Blood markers of inflammation rise significantly higher when meals are cooked in unstable oils compared to stable fats, even when calorie intake is identical. Perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of egg preparation is how easily damage can be avoided. No extreme diet is required. No elimination of eggs is necessary. Simply lowering cooking temperature, choosing stable fats, adding vegetables, and avoiding processed pairings transforms eggs from a potential inflammatory trigger into a protective food. This is not nutritional theory. This is biochemistry observed repeatedly in controlled studies, where the same food produces opposite health outcomes based entirely on preparation and context. The tragedy is that many seniors believe their fatigue, brain fog, joint pain, and loss of strength are inevitable parts of aging, when in reality, these symptoms often reflect years of cumulative metabolic stress from well-intentioned but poorly structured meals. The egg becomes a silent witness to this process, blamed unfairly while the true culprits go unnoticed. When eggs are cooked gently, paired with vegetables, eaten with stable fats, and consumed at the right time of day, they support circulation, protect the brain, preserve muscle, and reduce inflammation. The same egg cooked aggressively, paired poorly, and consumed in a pro-inflammatory environment participates in damage. The difference is not genetics, it is not age, it is not luck. It is the invisible chemistry of preparation, repeated daily, shaping health slowly, predictably, and relentlessly, one meal at a time, until the results finally surface in ways that can no longer be ignored. Most people assume that an egg is just an egg, identical no matter where it comes from, but this belief hides one of the most shocking nutritional truths of modern food science, because the quality and context of an egg can quietly determine whether it supports longevity or accelerates inflammation, especially in seniors whose bodies are far less forgiving than they once were. Two people can eat the same number of eggs every day and experience completely opposite health outcomes, not because of age or genetics, but because of what those eggs contain and the metabolic environment in which they are eaten. The difference begins long before the egg reaches your plate. It starts with what the chicken ate. Conventionally raised chickens are typically fed grain-heavy diets dominated by corn and soy, often treated with pesticides and genetically modified. This directly alters the fatty acid profile of the egg. Research shows that conventional eggs contain significantly higher levels of omega-6 fatty acids and far fewer omega-3s. Omega-6 fats are not inherently evil, but when consumed in excess, especially without balancing omega-3s, they promote chronic inflammation, joint pain, vascular stiffness, and brain inflammation. Seniors are particularly sensitive to this imbalance because aging brains already experience increased neuroinflammation, which is strongly linked to memory loss and cognitive decline. Pasture-raised eggs tell a very different story. Chickens allowed to forage naturally consume grasses, insects, and diverse plant matter, producing eggs with dramatically higher omega-3 levels, more vitamin D, more vitamin A, and higher concentrations of antioxidants like vitamin E. These nutrients are not cosmetic extras. Vitamin D deficiency alone is associated with increased fall risk, muscle weakness, immune dysfunction, and higher mortality in older adults. When seniors consume low-quality eggs daily, they are unknowingly reinforcing deficiencies instead of correcting them. Cholesterol content also changes with egg quality, but not in the way most people expect. High-quality eggs contain cholesterol packaged with protective antioxidants that reduce oxidation. Low-quality eggs lack these protective compounds, making their cholesterol more vulnerable to oxidative damage once inside the body. Oxidized cholesterol is one of the most aggressive contributors to arterial plaque formation. Studies show that oxidative stress, not dietary cholesterol intake, is what drives cardiovascular risk. This means quality matters more than quantity, yet this distinction is rarely discussed in mainstream nutrition advice. Context matters just as much as quality. An egg eaten in a low-inflammation environment behaves very differently than an egg eaten in a body already stressed by sugar, refined carbohydrates, and metabolic dysfunction. Seniors with insulin resistance experience exaggerated inflammatory responses to meals. When eggs are eaten in isolation or with vegetables and healthy fats, insulin remains stable, inflammation decreases, and nutrients are efficiently absorbed. When the same eggs are eaten in a high-sugar context, insulin spikes increase oxidative stress, and even beneficial nutrients become less effective. The egg does not change, the internal environment does. One of the most powerful examples of this is muscle preservation. Sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle, affects nearly half of adults over 60 and is one of the strongest predictors of disability and early death. Eggs contain leucine, a key amino acid that triggers muscle protein synthesis, but in insulin-resistant individuals, leucine signaling is impaired. Research shows that stabilizing blood sugar dramatically improves the muscle-building response to protein in older adults. This means that eggs eaten in the right metabolic context can slow or even partially reverse muscle loss, while eggs eaten in a high-insulin environment fail to protect muscle at all. The brain is equally sensitive to context. Eggs are one of the richest dietary sources of choline, a nutrient required to form acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter essential for memory, attention, and learning. Low choline intake is associated with accelerated cognitive decline and increased risk of dementia. But chronic inflammation interferes with acetylcholine signaling. High-sugar diets, insulin resistance, and oxidative stress block the very pathways that choline is meant to support. Seniors who eat eggs while maintaining stable blood sugar experience cognitive benefits. Seniors who eat eggs in a pro-inflammatory dietary pattern do not. Once again, the egg is not the deciding factor, the context is. Eye health provides another striking example. Lutein and zeaxanthin in egg yolks accumulate in the retina, protecting against macular degeneration, one of the leading causes of blindness in older adults. Studies show that these carotenoids are more bioavailable from eggs than from vegetables alone due to the presence of fat. But oxidative stress depletes these compounds rapidly. Diets high in refined carbohydrates increase oxidative damage in retinal tissue, canceling out the protective effect. Seniors who eat high-quality eggs as part of an anti-inflammatory diet show slower progression of vision loss compared to those who consume eggs in a standard Western diet. Even the frequency of egg consumption changes its impact based on quality and context. Low-quality eggs eaten daily in an inflammatory diet pattern compound damage over time, increasing joint pain, stiffness, and fatigue. High-quality eggs eaten daily in a low-inflammation context support satiety, reduce calorie intake, and improve metabolic markers. Large population studies consistently show that eggs are neutral or beneficial for cardiovascular health when consumed as part of whole food dietary patterns and potentially harmful only when combined with refined carbohydrates and processed foods. Perhaps the most unsettling truth is how quietly this damage accumulates. There is no immediate symptom when low-quality eggs contribute to inflammation. No warning light, no pain signal, just a slow erosion of resilience that shows up years later as weakness, poor balance, memory lapses, and chronic disease. These outcomes are often blamed on aging itself, when in reality they reflect years of nutritional context repeating itself daily. The solution is not to fear eggs or eliminate them. The solution is to respect their power. Choose eggs that come from healthier animals. Eat them in a metabolic environment that supports healing rather than inflammation. Pair them with vegetables, stable fats, and low glycemic foods. Eat them at times when your body can use their nutrients to repair rather than store. When this context is honored, eggs become one of the most efficient longevity foods available, capable of supporting muscle, brain, vision, and metabolic health simultaneously. When it is ignored, the same food becomes a silent participant in decline. Not because eggs are dangerous, but because biology always responds to context. Every meal sends a signal. Every egg participates in that signal. And over years, those signals shape health with a precision that is impossible to escape, but entirely possible to change, starting with the very next